Hey, this is Kevlar from Cybersecurity is Daily. My fellow Americans, I have an update for some more left wing lunatic behavior, and this time it's pertaining to none other than the previous host of the CNN News channel, Mr. Don Lemon, who was unceremoniously let go from CNN some time ago. So he's out doing man on the street interviews, and he just so happened to come across a black brother uh, who claims that he was detained in an ICE facility by ICE for approximately 8 hours after ICE uh, basically told him, come with us after they knocked on his door and he opened it. That's his story. So the, the, the entire interview with Don Lemon and the gentleman who never gave his name, by the way. I don't believe that this is genuine. I believe this is another hoax like a Jesse Smollett or the girl that everybody was looking for a couple of years ago, or you know, any number of racialized injustice hoax that they're trying to perpetrate. And Don Lemon is he is like really just so immoral and so unscrupulous. He has no integrity, this man. Because if you watch this interview, to me, I feel like either this man, this African American brother, uh, black American, was either lying about the whole situation, or it's true that he was in the ICE facility. But I feel like Don Lemon has something to do with orchestrating the whole thing with this gentleman who seems to be not too bright at first, and then he starts talking about being a Democrat and how the Democrats need to push back against Trump and the administration. So I'm led. This is leading me to believe that this is a hoax, and that this man, some somehow or another, this is not. We're not being told everything about what transpired with this man. That's my personal belief, and I wouldn't put it past Don Lemon because you can clearly see in the interview that he's coaching the man on a lot of things to say. There's a lot of stop and go in the camera footage, so it's not authentic. It's as far as as far as I can see or believe, it's not authentic. That being said, the idea that ICE is racially profiling and uh, you know harassing U.S. citizens, I'm not happy about that at all. But guess what? I hope it doesn't happen to anyone out there who might experience this, because racial profiling has always been part of the playbook for law enforcement. Let's get that straight. So what's happening here now, if there's any truth to this story, like I said, it's going to happen where, people who don't even appear to have the characteristics of an illegal alien are probably going to get stopped by law enforcement. But I'm not going to let that deter the bigger picture of the, first of all, that these Democrats that this gentleman claimed to be part of, if they wouldn't have put all of these illegals in your neighborhood, then you would have less to worry about as far as getting swept up in ice raids. See, this whole thing was foreseeable. It was totally foreseeable that if you open the border, I'm talking about the way this administration, the Biden administration handled this. You open the border, you let millions of unvetted foreigners enter our country, there's backlash and rebellion behind that at the ballot box. And now mass deportation is being carried out as it should. But there's no way you can tell me that the entire Democrat governing body couldn't see that this was foreseeable. And I guess they thought that we would just tolerate nonstop people coming from across the border and by the hundreds of thousands, by the millions, into a Democratic administration had Kamala Harris won, as opposed to having to deal with law enforcement, federal law enforcement being right at your door because they have to get rid of these violent criminal illegals that came into this country, and they're going to have to employ tactics that really seem to stretch the limits of personal liberty and constitutional rights. I'm not a fan of that, but I do understand why it's being done. And I don't think anything that does happen in the future is going to be as terrible as people like Don Lemon and Jasmine Crockett and Ilhan Omar, all of these people who constantly are trying to get us to accept not only the millions of illegal immigrants that are in the country, illegal aliens that are in the country now, but they also want us to accept the possibility of reopening the border to the same amount of influx of migrants coming into our country. That will not be tolerated ever again, as far as I'm concerned. I know that there are patriots out there who will go to the border this time if there's a Democrat that steals the election, the next presidential election. So if the Democrats steal it somehow, because the deep state and this agenda to force these illegals on us as citizens is unrelenting. The media is a part of it. When I say the media, I mean the major news platforms that have basically the most unlimited pockets, financials that you can imagine. And then you have segments of the federal judiciary that are pushing this agenda and trying to stop Trump and the administration from deporting these illegals. So this is a truly existential battle that us as Americans have to fight for our country. These people have no right to be here, but all they do constantly is bombard you with images of takedowns of these illegals and the false narrative that they said they were only going to deport the worst of the worst. How does the term mass immigration, mass deportation indicate that it's only going to affect a certain portion of illegals? Where do you get that from? That's asinine. Anybody who comes in contact with ICE, who is an illegal alien, is going to be apprehended, detained, and ultimately sent back to their country of origin or a third country. Now, in the clip, when you see it, and you see how Don Lemon is just finishing this man's sentences almost and leading him in his questions. So that gives me a lot of doubt about the authenticity and the truthfulness of this man's story. And if any part of that story is true, I see him like an old fool. Okay, he said he's 66 years old, and for him to not be able to do enough critical thinking to understand that the reason why ICE is in your neighborhood in the first place is because of the unlawful border crisis that was created, manufactured by the Biden administration. They took all those millions of people and they dispersed them amongst the people in the black communities and other communities of color, not Indian communities or just black communities and Hispanic communities of people who here legally. So watch this clip. Let me know in the comments if you think this man's story is credible. I think it's a bunch of BS, to be honest with you. He never gave his name, which is completely suspect. And Don Lemon right now, you know, the CNN checks is gone. So he's not above just fabricating stories to go viral and to sow more racial division. So if I didn't say it before, I'll say it now. You know, I kind of hate his guts for that. And I kind of hate his guts for the way he continually is pushing the narrative of let these people come into our country, let them live here, let them take our resources, let's give them government benefits that the taxpayers pay for. I fully reject all of that. So this is going to be an ongoing battle, an ongoing fight to get our country back from these invaders. And it was ironic that the man in the video called the ICE agents invaders. No, stupid. That's why I say he's an old fool. Because the invaders came from the border, from south of the border, and from all continents. Those are the people that invaded our country and our neighborhoods. Get it right. This is why I call that man. He's an old fool. Okay? So let's stay vigilant in getting this information out and being able to counterpunch, figuratively, the fake news narrative that they constantly putting out there about ICE, about this being racism and only racism. It's complete bullshit. And I'm going to do some posts about who are the people that ICE is capturing and deporting. You're going to find out there's some of the most, they're like the scum of the earth, like really deplorable, like miscreant scoundrels that have no regard for a human life. None. Uncivilized people. And they got to get up out of here. So I'll talk to you folks later. And, America first.